Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. Before actually beginning this text, I'd like to give a brief introduction into the organization of the book. When I had the opportunity to study classical Arabic at a traditional school of Islamic learning in Pakistan, I observed something very amazing. Young students with essentially no background in the Arabic language would come for their first year at the school, and within 9 to 12 months, many of them would be reading texts in their original classical Arabic. I found this amazing because, reflecting on my own experience in which I had failed over and over again in my attempts at learning the Arabic language, I saw that these children had quickly mastered some of the most difficult concepts within this endeavor. After reflecting upon their status and what allowed them to progress so quickly, I realized that it was the methodology of their studies and the devotion of their teachers that led to this success. This book is organized along the way in which we were taught in this traditional school, and actually it embeds and emulates the methodology used by Islamic scholars for centuries. The book is actually made up of a series of lessons, and these lessons are subdivided into principles. Before beginning, you have to understand that you must master each individual principle before moving to the next. And as a corollary, you obviously must master each lesson before moving to the next lesson. This is so essential in understanding the language. At times, we often become rushed and we feel like we should progress more quickly than we are, and so we begin to look forward or move forward in a particular text. But the rule is that you do as much as you can at any given time and don't move forward until you've mastered what's behind. When I first wrote this book, I was tempted to place the tables that are present at the end of the book before the principles which are present in the beginning of each lesson. The reason is because in the traditional school of Islamic learning where I studied, we actually mastered each individual table, meaning the conjugations of each particular verb form, before we understood the principles that led to those conjugations. And this was something which allowed me to benefit tremendously, because rather than conjugate by thinking of a series of principles, for example, oh, I need to add ending A or ending B in order to produce a certain conjugation, I memorized all of the conjugations and I learned to use patterns to produce new conjugations. And essentially, the principles in this text are secondary to this method. Your goal is to ingrain a series of patterns within your mind, such that you can then use those patterns to conjugate new words and new verbs. In fact, this is exactly what we do in the English language. For example, adding the letters ER to the end of a verb produce a pattern which illustrates the doer of that particular verb. For example, if you add the letters ER to the verb build, you form builder, which produces the idea of a person who builds. Similarly with teacher, and similarly with writer. In the Arabic language, patterns are essential to mastering the language. As a means of assisting the student throughout the text, I've provided essential notes which highlight the table that needs to be memorized in each independent lesson. Throughout the text, you'll realize that the letters fa, ayn, and lam are used as model letters for both noun and verb forms. These three letters, when joined together, actually have the meaning of to do. Now, because I've chosen only a single word to illustrate all conjugations of various noun and verb forms, at times the translations will be awkward. But remember that the goal is to learn patterns, and over time the meanings will become more obvious. And this is especially true when you reach the end of the book, in which you will be asked to conjugate new verbs according to the patterns that you learned in the earlier lessons. At times, learning the Arabic language can be extremely difficult, and you have to remember that success lies in consistency. With regular work and hard effort, and a deep, deep commitment to consistency, you will inshallah taste the fruits of your labor. Where there are errors, it is a mistake of my own, and where you have taken benefit and you have learned, it is from the hard work of my teachers. Once you've understood the concepts laid out in the introduction, you may move to lesson number 1.